Welcome to Convince Me, presented by Bet365. We are kicking off the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you need, none of the fluff that you don't. I am Chad Millman. For the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, Chris Raybon, are going to convince me and convince you all the props, all the sides, all the totals that you need to bet for all the games today. Plus, we have Evan Abrams with market reports from the Action Network news desk that make you sound smarter than all your friends. At the bottom half of the hour, we got the touchdown show. Gilles Gallant, Brian Matthews, Charlie Disturco take us through all the best touchdown props on the board today. Before we begin, a reminder, like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. All the picks we discussed today are tracked for free in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it today. Don't forget to sync your Bet365 bets with the Action app. It's the coolest, slickest way to track your picks with ease and speed. Click the My Accounts button in the My Action tab in the Action app. All right, it is sloppy. It is cold. It is rainy. There are backup quarterbacks all over the board. I don't know which way to turn. Hopefully, my guys today can give me some answers. Sean Koerner, fire away. You got some player props.
What's up, Chad? Yeah, let's go with David Montgomery, his longest run today to be under 15 and a half yards. You can get it at minus 125 right now. But, Montgomery's broken off a couple of really long runs this year, 42 yards and 72 yards to be exact. But he's only cleared this specific number on 5 of his 151 attempts. So right around 3% of his attempts have gone over this. And this is just a brutal matchup against a Bears run defense that's allowed the second lowest explosive run rate at just 2%. They added Montez Sweat back in week 9, and the run defense has been even stronger since then. The Lions will be without center Frank Ragnow today. Montgomery's averaged 4.9 yards a rush with him on the field this year. With him off the field, he's only carried the ball 10 times, but he's only gone for 14 yards. So 1.4 yards a rush without Ragnow on the field. They're going to slide Graham Glasgow over to center. They're going to elevate rookie Colby Swordsdale, who's really struggled this year, as the starting right guard today. So I think that could be an issue. Going to make it even tougher for Montgomery to break a long run here. So I'm projecting his median closer to about 13 and a half yards for his longest rush today, with about a 62% chance he stays under this.
Ooh, look, this Bears defense, and I have a feeling we're going to talk about it more.
Yeah.
But it has been a midseason story since they got Montez Sweat. It's been fascinating to see their growth as a unit. And by the way, I know, foreshadowing, Lions defense kind of fading. Simon, what's your player prop?
Yeah, seeing how many times you just nodded your head makes me sick. That was sickening. You're just like, yes. Yes. Everything he said, you just kept saying yes in your head.
It's true. It's true. Affirmation, brother. That's all it is.
So I already know I'm dead on arrival here, but I'll give it a go anyway. Going with Dameon Pierce, his over rushing total in this Jets game. It's just simply matchup based. I don't think they've priced in enough him coming back. They still have him and Singletary pretty much at the same number, even though last week Dameon Pierce had 15 carries. That just shows the Texans, they kind of want him to be their number one, right? They've given him that respect. They think he's earned it. Even though Singletary did really well when he was out, when Pierce came back, they gave him his workload. So I'm going to trust the coaching there, and I'm going to trust the team playing against a Jets team that is 28th in the league against the run. So it's a team that's given up well over 100 yards per game to running backs. We're supposed to have bad weather. We've seen CJ's number. His passing total has dropped way down. I think it's down to like 215, 220 now. That just indicates that they kind of want to, the books are kind of banking on them running the ball here. So I think this number's still too short, Chad. I think we're getting a nice number here just because the books haven't priced him coming back from this injury. So if you can get anything below 40, I like this over for Dameon Pierce.
I'm trying not to move my head in any way to betray any decision making that I might have already made. All right, Raybon, can you swing the deal in your direction this morning?
Let's see if I can. I'm going with an over as well. Jamal Williams over 2.5 receiving yards. He's had 3 or more in each of his last 5 games. He's had 6 or more in 3 of his last 5 games. And The reason that I think he is a great value today is because the Saints are missing a ton of pass catchers. Kendre Miller, their other running back that would cut into Williams' snap. Michael Thomas, obviously. Rashid Shaheed at wide receiver. Taysom Hill at tight end. So I think Derek Carr will be even more likely than usual to drop the ball off and check it down. And Jamal Williams over the last 2 games since the bye has played on 38% of the pass snaps compared to 28% before in his last 4 games with Alvin Kamara. So he's already playing more snaps, and that's why he's cleared this number. So I was looking at our projections. Koerner and I both have Jamal Williams projected for double-digit receiving yards. He doesn't average that many yards per catch, but I expect him to have at least 1 reception. I think that should be his floor. So I would bet this up to about 7.5. I think this number is way too low.
All right, Simon, I'm going to surprise you here. I'm not going with David Montgomery because you never know. Like, the explosive plays always scare me a little bit. There's so much variance in those. I like the Dameon Pierce idea, but I'm actually going with Jamal Williams because I do feel like you're getting so much value on the ceiling for his potential receiving yards. Also, by the way, you guys know I'm a price shopper. I like a deal. And right now, Jamal Williams over 2.5 minus 110. So I'm going with Jamal Williams over receiving yards minus 110 for my first player prop. I fooled you, Simon. I got you right there. Koerner, I know what you want to say. Your hat gives it away. I did a little poem there. Tell us what you're going to do.
Yeah, so I'm going with the Bears, plus 3.5 if you can get it. Obviously, it's always critical to get that hook there. But I love the Bears today, if you can't tell. And I already mentioned, the Bears defense is one that's improved quite a bit over the past month or so. They've already been stout against the run all season. They have the 2nd lowest success rate allowed against the run this year. But their pass rush has improved a ton ever since they landed Montez Sweat back in week 9. In fact, they ranked 6th in DVOA since then. So just overall, they're playing a lot better. They played the Lions a couple weeks ago. They managed to get 26 pressures on Jared Goff. That was a huge reason why he struggled, why he threw 3 interceptions. And Goff, as always, tends to struggle on the road outdoors. So this just could be a letdown spot for the Lions, who have been faltering of late. I already mentioned they're going to be without center Frank Ragnow. I think that's going to be a big deal. The rookie Colby Sorsdahl has really struggled. So we've seen anytime they've had to shuffle the offensive line around, it's really caused some issues for Goff. And on the other side of the ball, I think you alluded to it, the Lions defense has really been struggling lately. They ranked 26 in DVOA over the last month. They also just lost defensive tackle Aleem McNeil to the IR. He's one of their best run defenders. So that's just a bad loss here against the Bears team that's obviously an extreme run-heavy team. So that's going to be an even bigger blow for them today. So I just think we're just getting too many points here at home for a Bears team that's on the rise and a Lions team that I think is susceptible to a team like the Bears. So again, I think I like it at +3, but I think it's critical if you can to get the +3.5 here.
Yeah, this is a really tricky one. This line opened at 5 on Sunday night. Simon and I talked about the Bears immediately on Sunday night on the favorites in our end of the day show last Sunday. You mentioned 2 things, and this is where it gets really interesting. This is why professional bettors make their money. They understand the value of offensive line and defensive line. And you mentioned Frank Ragnow now a couple of times. When people say, why do bettors watch the preseason games? They watch the preseason games because they want to see who is the backup guard that's going to have to come in when the starting guard has to move over to center because the starting center is out of the game in week 14, and you need to know if there's an edge. And you also mentioned McNeil, right? Raybon and Stuckey in their podcast this week, the Sunday Six Pack, you can watch it on YouTube Wednesday nights. They talked about the value of McNeil and how important he has been to this defensive line. If you're a football fan, you've heard him mentioned again and again and again in all the national broadcasts that the Lions games have been in. The only thing that worries me now, and I love this play for all the reasons, the Bears are a very public dog right now. So that is a little bit scary. Simon, in this one, I kind of am tipping my hand, but I'm happy to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs. It's probably my chalkiest play of the season, but I mean, you talk all the time, Chad. We played the value, and I think the value shifted from Buffalo. We're early in the week, 2.5, 3. I could be talking to Buffalo, but now at -1, -1.5, we got to play the Mahomes spot, right? This is for us historically. We do well playing this spot, right, Chad? So just looking at the numbers, Mahomes after a loss his career, he's 17-3 straight up, and what do we say all the time? If the number goes down to 1.5, that just means they have to win, right? And that's what we're playing here. We're just playing Mahomes to win after a really bad loss, a loss where they didn't put up 20 points, which again is a shocking for him in his career. But we like those numbers, right? After a game where he doesn't put up 20 points, he's 8-2 ATS in his career. So a bunch of trends that are pointing to it. I totally understand the love for Buffalo, right? People are backing them off a bye week. But me and you, Chad, we know Mahomes under 3 at home. We play this spot. So not going to overthink this one, Chad. I'm just going to take the -1, -1.5 and back Mahomes here at home.
Yeah, it's actually so interesting to me. I'm with you. Like, this is the side Mahomes, as Evan can tell you, in all of the research he does and that we talk about all week on all of our shows, Mahomes in December and January, and February for that matter, practically unbeatable. Now you're going to make him a 1-point favorite at home. There's a lot of sort of negative recency bias against the Chiefs because their wide receivers haven't been making plays downfield. But look, there's also been a lot of conversation about that PI that wasn't called in the Packers game. And all I know is I had the Packers +6. You had the Packers +6. I was so anxious with Patrick Mahomes having the ball in his hand in that last drive. I don't want to be in that position again today when he's at home as a very short favorite against a team that's somewhat in disarray in the Buffalo Bills. Raybon, talk to me.
I mean, why bet on Patrick Mahomes when you could bet on Bryce Young? I'm going with the Panthers +5.5 at the New Orleans Saints. And, you know, this Panther team has been so bad all year. And I didn't bet them at all until they fired Frank Reich. I kind of saw that one coming. But now I think they've been undervalued in the market. They were last week. I think they're again this week. And their defense has been top 10 in EPA per play when you exclude turnovers since week 8. And the Saint team, I mean, you got Derek Carr's probably not 100%. No Michael Thomas, no Rashid Shaheed, no Taysom Hill, which is massive. Olave is under the weather. He didn't practice the last 2 days with an illness. So he's going to go, but he's not 100% either. Carolina just got cornerback J.C. Horn back last game. It's going to be his 3rd game suiting up. He graded out as one of the best corners in football last year and last game. They're 8-4 against the spread in the last 12 games that Horn has been active. And then on the other side, there's nowhere for this Carolina offense to go but up without Frank Reich. Last week, they put up their most points and most yards since week 6 in the first game without him. And this Saint defense since week 8 is bottom 5 in EPA per play. And this is just also a big fade Dennis Allen spot. Allen is just 5-16-1 against the spread as a favorite. They've been a favorite 10 times this year. They've covered once. The New Orleans Saints, the only team in the NFL with a worse against the spread record than the Carolina Panthers this year. So give me Carolina +5.5.
We like, I love the analysis. We like doing ugly things on this show. And it's been really tricky the past, say, 5 weeks in the NFL, betting against the favorites, betting on the favorites. The favorites the past 2 weeks, Evan can back me up. I think they're 22-7 or something like that. It's a pretty insane number, but you got to go back to the well. And while I love all these picks, and truth be told, you can go in the Action Network app. You can see I bet the Bears, I bet the Chiefs, I bet the Panthers. I've already bet them all. So to me, it's just about choosing my favorite right now. Simon, let me ask you a question. Let's say I take the Chiefs out of it. I love the Bears pick so much. I'm a little worried that it's becoming the public favorite pick, and you and I both have been burned on public favorite picks. Help me make a choice. Panthers or Bears?
Yeah, I'm with you. I love them both. The fear would be what Sean just said is it's gonna be hard to find that 3.5, right? For the Bears. It's like you really got to shop around and be in the right state to find it, where Chris's pick, the books are happy to take your money here. You can find a 6, 5.5 anywhere. That's going to be all over. It's an ugly dog that no one's betting. So I'm with you that the Bears, me and you both love it. It might be the more public dog. So it's probably going to be easier to find a 5.5 or a 6 on that Carolina pick.
This is why you need to watch the show. It has the stuff. It has the nuanced take on getting you smarter as a bettor. We love them all. Take them all. If you can find the 3.5 for the Bears, great. I'm going to go with the Panthers because I do think there's a better opportunity to find it at the best possible price. Take the Panthers. Chris says 5.5. I say you got to go find a 6 because that's the best price that you're going to find. Woo, that's a tricky one. I didn't know where I was going to go with that one at all. All right. We're going to get to the Action Network news desk here. I'm not going to sing for you folks. I can't do it. We miss Dan Ravel so much, but you're going to have to do without the tunes. Right now, week 14, the most bet team, 78% of the bets on the Miami Dolphins versus the Titans. We have 74% on the Broncos. Talk about a public dog against the Chargers. 72% of the bets on the Texans against the Jets. That seems like a play where you might want to go to the Jets. Evan, tell me something else.
So to hit to your point earlier, favorites 33-11 straight up since week 11. So pretty hot recently. But talking about public side, so Denver, you said now 75%, and that would be tied for Russell Wilson's high since he joined the Broncos. So really reaching the peak there. And then from the Texans, that's 72%. Stroud's career high is 64%. So this would be the biggest public side of Stroud's career. Now you look at totals for a second. Now this is Action Labs, Bet Labs data coming from the Action Network. Unders, the two biggest totals this week, Green Bay and the Giants, 91% to the under. Houston, the Jets, 82% to the under. Now it's worth noting in terms of public sides, 102, 80, and 5 against the spread this year. Public sides, now that's 51% of tickets or more. That is the best start for public sides in the Bet Labs database in 2005. So public's having a good run. Now
that is terrible. That is terrible for people like me.
It's terrible for people like me too, but kind of unreal when you think about it because public's been pretty bad the last few years. But let's talk about what this week has. Current moment, the average over-under for all NFL games in week 14, 41.46. That would be the second lowest for a single week since week 1 of 2011. Pretty crazy. And the lowest was week 16 of last year at 41 itself. Now, the reason for that, weather and wind. So let's just roll through a few games right now and give you some updates. So Rams, Ravens, rain picking up. Most of the game is supposed to be sloppy. Jaguars, Cleveland, a little bit less of rain. Total's actually rising. So it's actually up to 37-38 now. It was as low as 30.5. So really on the rise. Trevor Lawrence supposed to start, probably the reason. Houston Jets, off and on downpour, probably some thunderstorms. Tennessee, Miami. It's actually the second game this week where you're going to see 10-mile-an-hour winds, which is important. 18-5-1 to the under this year. And then finally, Chicago, Detroit. No wet, nothing like that. Just 35 degrees, cold, and some issues downfield. Now, the reason for those unders, you probably have 8 backup quarterbacks starting this week. Now, 9 would be a record for a non-week 17, 18 week, but looking like some adjustments here with Lawrence in and Derek Carr starting, you're probably just going to get to 8, 9 would be that record. Finally, Patrick Mahomes. Simon mentioned it. He is minus 1.5 today at home. Mahomes has started 54 career home games. He has closed below a 2-point favorite just once. October 16, 2022, plus 2.5 against the Bills. That's right. Allen to Knox with a minute left. Buffalo wins a game 24-20. So we'll see what happens today. But as Simon mentioned, 15-5-1. Mahomes as a favorite under 3 or an underdog. So,
you know what's interesting about that Cleveland game that you mentioned, where there's going to be wind and the total has just bounced around between the news about Trevor Lawrence and the weather and all that kind of stuff is, and I think Stuckey talked about this again on the Sunday Six Pack with Raybon, Wednesday night to YouTube. Check it out. This is why you got to watch these shows, folks, because these numbers are always moving. You got to get the best of it when our guys are talking about it. It really doesn't matter what the number ends up being. We're seeing this number, in this case, for the total for weather, bouncing back up to 37, 38, with the news of Lawrence. Unfortunately, I bet the under at 33.5. These totals, when wind is involved, are covering by 5.4 points a game, regardless of where the closing number is. So that's against the close. So if it closed at 37, I'm really hoping it still comes under 33.5. Evan, thank you for that excellent report. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. All right. We're talking about totals. Let's talk about a total. Koerner.
Yeah, so I like the Panthers-Saints game to go under 39. And the Panthers were just much more conservative in their first game under interim head coach Chris Tabor. They had the third highest early down run rate, seventh slowest pace in neutral situations last week. They also made some personal decisions that I thought were very conservative. They really throttled down the playing time DJ Chark saw. He saw the lowest playing time of the season. He leads the team in receptions 15 plus yards down the field. But they're kind of phasing out their most explosive player in their passing attack. And, you know, on the other side, the Saints have also been a little bit more run heavy and slower paced recently. And I think Derek Carr starting over Jameis Winston, especially since Derek Carr is playing through so many injuries, helps the under here. He's really struggled again in the red zone this season. He ranks in bottom 10 in success rate in the red zone. And Raybon mentioned they're without Taysom Hill today. That's a big blow, especially in the red zone packages. It's always nice, you know, having him in there. So they might be a little bit more predictable. Downfield threat, Rashid Shaheed's also out. Michael Thomas is still on IR. Chris Olave is playing through an illness. He might not be 100%. So with JC Horn back for the Panthers, it might be even easier to, you know, slow down Chris Olave here. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like the under 39 here.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that one. That's an interesting idea. Simon?
And I'll just really quick touch on that Cleveland game, Chad. I like that Trevor Lawrence is coming back. If you're someone like me who bet the under with you, I think that's good that he's coming back. The guy has no pocket mobility, and that's a big deal against a Cleveland line that's going to be getting after him, especially with the injuries that Jaguars have to their offensive line. So I don't get it. I think it's a bad decision to let him rush back and kind of force him in there. So I'm with Chad on that under, but another under I like this week is going to be that Jets game. And I can't get you there on the Jets, Chad. I've been fighting you all week to take the Jets. They're down to 3 now. So clearly the pros have come in on this Jets team. They bet this down. And same goes for the under. We saw this total come down this whole week. It got down to 32 last night. Now, I mean, the weather's not supposed to be as bad. It's gone up to 33. I still like this spot for this Jets defense. What they do well is what Houston wants to do. Houston wants to pass the ball. But CJ's without his number 1 tight end and Tank Dell. That's going to be a big deal, their passing offense, where, you know, the Jets, they have guys to take on Collins and their other receivers. I like the matchup with the Jets defense. Then on the flip side, it's Zach Wilson again. Zach Wilson is back being the starting quarterback. We know his woes, his struggle, especially in the red zone. This is a team that, I mean, what are we, week 14? I think they have 10 offensive touchdowns, Evan. Is that right? Through 14 weeks. So it's a team that has struggled mightily offensively to score. And, you know, they're a team that I like to take their under. So looking at this number, I'm not going to let the weather kind of scare me off. It's supposed to be in the second half. That's when it's supposed to get really bad with the wind. So don't be too discouraged if there are some points in the first half. I think the second half is when we've seen these two teams really struggle, especially in the red zone. So the fact that this is still 33.5, I like the under here, Chad, with the Jets.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm regretful that I got shy about betting the Jets this week. And you're probably right. We still got a shot. We can always take a look and see if we want to play them in the favorites contest. You and I'll talk about that. Raybon, what's total you're talking about?
Let's go with the Bucks Falcons over 41. You got an indoor game with this Atlanta team who plays a lot better at home. This year, 23 points per game at home, just 14.7 on the road. So nearly 9 more points per game at home for the Falcons. And Desmond Ridder, he's always played better at home throughout his career. 7.3 yards an attempt and an 89 passer rating when he's at home, 6 yards an attempt and a 76 rating on the road. This Tampa Bay defense has been bottom 5 in EPA per play since coming off the bye in week 6. And on the other side, you have Atlanta missing Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata on the defensive line, Nate Landman. So a lot of guys missing up front for the Falcons. And these teams played a 16-13 game in week 7, but that score is misleading. These teams combined for 730 yards of offense. The Falcons fumbled twice at like the 1 yard line, I believe it was. So easily could have had a lot more points in that game. And you guys talked about it. There's a lot of weather and outdoor games and backup quarterbacks and uncertainty. This is one of the games that's, we kind of know who's playing. They're indoors, and we have something to go off of to kind of handicap this one. So really like the over here, 41 Bucks Falcons.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea because with these quarterbacks, you are so vulnerable to turnover variance. And sometimes that works out great for you. You can get a Baker Mayfield pick 6, but at the same time, you could also get a Desmond Ridder fumbles inside the 5 yard line while trying to execute a handoff, and you're losing points. It's like that one will make your head spin. I'm going with Carolina, New Orleans. And all of a sudden, this is becoming one of those games where everybody is looking at it as like, hey, that's a sneaky opportunity to make some money today. So now we're on Carolina plus 5.5 and 6. And now we're on Carolina and New Orleans, the under 39. I'm okay with making some of those plays. We're talking about the Koerner TV game of the week, potentially. All right, let's get to a huge game, huge Sunday night football game. We got the Dallas Cowboys. We got the Philadelphia Eagles. This number has moved past the key number. It went from 2.5 Cowboys to 3 Cowboys to 3.5 Cowboys. It's come back down in some places to 3. Some money coming in on the Eagles. But right now you got 43% of the bets on the Dallas Cowboys. On the Eagles. And you got 42% of the money on the Cowboys. That should tell you a little bit that we're talking about some wise guys betting on the Cowboys. What will we get from our wise guys? Koerner, take it away.
Yeah, so I got a touchdown prop for you, and this isn't my official Sunday Night Football prop. That'll be out later, but I like Kevontae Turpin to score touchdown at plus 650. He doesn't see too much playing time, but when he is on the field, he touches the ball at a very high rate. He's scored a touchdown in 4 of 11 games he's played this year. 3 were receiving and 1 was rushing, and he's their kick and punt returner. So he's a player that has multiple different ways to find the end zone. And in a big game like this, I feel like if they have any like sneaky plays with him up their sleeve, this would be the time to use it, especially, in the red zone. So I think he's a sneaky play here at plus 650.
All right. Anytime touchdown. That's interesting. We'll get more touchdown props in the bottom half of the power hour. Simon, what's your play?
Chad, I've been sick all week, and it's not because I have the flu. It's because I'm betting the Cowboys against the Eagles. It's the only play here. Chris is going to hit you with a bunch of stats. I'll hit you with just the spot play, right? We talk all the time. This Eagles team, they got a bad draw when it came to scheduling. The last week they played a team that was on 10-day rest. What happened the second half? They gave up six straight possessions that scored a touchdown in the second half. It's just a team that, as good as they are offensively, they don't have the dogs on defense, and then they've been unhealthy. So they're already thin on defense, and they lost guys to injury, especially the linebacking position. That's what Dallas is going to attack. I mean, Dallas, the first time they played, probably should have won that game, right? Dallas just had unlucky. They had a couple things that didn't bounce their way. I mean, they outgained them by a ton of yards. Now you're looking at this matchup. Kind of feels a little bit of the same here with the Eagles. Sure, do they want to win this game? Yes. Do they really need it in the grand scheme of things? No, they can drop this game. They'll be all right. And it's just a bad spot for them. Like, they've already had back-to-back long games on defense. Now they're on a road playing a team on extended rest. it's just a bad situation for this Eagles team. So if Dak shows up, which he has been, I mean, it's what, 7 weeks now he's played at the MVP level. You expect him to be able to torch this Eagles defense. So I have no doubt the Eagles will be able to put up points, but I think in the second half, Dallas is going to pull away, especially that their defense, I think, will be able to get turnovers against this Eagles offense. So, yeah, happy to take the -3.5. Like Chad said, you can find the 3 out there, but don't let the -3.5 scare you off in this one.
Raybon, you concur.
Yeah, man. And I feel like I've said this before, but usually Simon and I are going head to head on these primetime sides. So anytime we agree, I feel like it's won and it's been a smash. But I totally agree. I like Dallas in this spot. Simon already mentioned it. They outgained them 406 to 292 in the first matchup. So that 28-23 score was misleading. I think the issue for Philly this year on defense is that pass defense is not the same. You know, they were the best pass defense in the league last year. Now they're 24th in DVOA. And even as guys have gotten healthy, that's continued. Really, Slay and Bradbury on the outside have struggled. They're not the same players they were a year ago. And then you're still trying to find a slot corner. So that's really where it's hurt them. And then offensively, Jalen Hurts, remember they lost Steichen, their offensive coordinator. So this is a little bit of a different scheme for Hurts. And he just hasn't looked as crisp this year. His time to throw has gone from 2.86 seconds last year to 3.23 this year. So that's a pretty big jump. And his yards per attempt has dropped over a half a yard. So it's not like he's holding the ball, you know, to find a bigger play and be more efficient. He's holding the ball because I think he's just a little bit unsure. Guys aren't where he needs them to be. He's not seeing things. So it's just not as crisp. Dallas is top 10 on defense against the pass and the run. So I know Philly's going to come out, probably try to run the ball short in the game in this one. But Dallas held them to just 109 yards on 33 carries in that first matchup, just 3.3 yards per carry. Dallas 16-7 against the spread at home since 2021, 5-1 this season. They're on a 14-game home winning streak, as you know, everyone's kind of talking about. 11-3 against the spread on that winning streak, and 13 straight they've won at home by at least 4 points. So love me some Dallas. The only thing I'll say that I'm a little worried about, John Hussey is going to be the ref, and the Eagles have never failed to cover in the 7 games that he's reffed. So that's the only thing that worries me a little bit, but it's still Dallas or nothing.
Tonight, they're going to break the Hussey curse, Raybon. I'm going with the Cowboys -3.5. For the official record, I'm choosing Simon's 3.5, not Raybon's 3.5, because I already gave Raybon 2 picks, and Simon's been on this all week since last Sunday night when it was at 2.5. So I'll give him the credit for the 3.5. Koerner, before we get out of here, remind me, you know, the luck rankings are one of the coolest things that we do. And the totals for the luck rankings have been red hot in the second half of the season. Wasn't Cowboys Eagles a luck under? Am I misremembering that?
Yeah, it is a luck under, but that's when we're late in the season. It's actually a reverse signal where we're showing more value on the over. Those have typically hit around like 63% of the time. That's why I went with that Dolphins Commanders over last week. So it is a reverse trend where it favored the over here.
Got it. All right. Good to know. Hey, good to know that Bet365 is sponsoring Convince Me. They are our presenters. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Louisiana, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Don't forget to download the app to track all of our picks, folks. And don't forget to subscribe and like the Action Network YouTube page. Stay tuned for the Touchdown Show. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Convince Me crew, and welcome back to Week 14 of the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant. I'm joined every week by Charlie Disturco and Brian Matthews, a.k.a. the BMAT Boys. Another week in the green. week 13, we had a pretty good show. I got Devontae Smith for a late touchdown to salvage my day, and Charlie just continues to be scalding hot. Debo for 2 touchdowns and 15-1, and a little bit of vengeance for all of us by getting Michael Pittman in for a touchdown. I think we all lost on him at some point this year. So finally, It was nice to see somebody hit a touchdown bet with Michael Pittman. So the touchdown show, as a group, we're up about 14 units on the year. Now, 14, that's important because we are in week 14. Only 2 teams on bye, but a ton of games today, guys, impacted by bad weather or just bad quarterback play. A lot of backup quarterbacks as well. And Charlie, we have another game of the year, potentially, with Eagles Cowboys tonight.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the odds board just for these 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games, backup quarterbacks galore, bad weather
everywhere.
galore. It was a pain to find the scorers, but we all have picks for this game. I'm excited. Of course, Eagles Cowboys tonight, as you mentioned, another 2 teams of potential touchdown scores we could have chosen now out of the realm. But I do like Kevontae Turpin. Anytime you give me a plus with a 7 in front of it, I'm going to bet it with Kevontae Turpin because of Thanksgiving. B-Matt, I don't know about you, who you like going off tonight, but definitely going to be on Turpin.
Yeah, look, tonight it feels like a Fergie night. So Jake Ferguson's scoring a touchdown. I think right now the odds are around plus 175. I think closer to kickoff, but we'll be able to get that closer to 190, 200. So once it gets around there, I'm going on it. It's a Fergie kind of night.
And the one thing I would suggest if anybody's following us in the Action app is to set notifications, because we're tracking the touchdown odds for all games, especially like a game like Sunday Night Football, and watching the odds movement. And if we see a touchdown bet we like, finally when the odds get to where we need it and we track it, you'll get a notification saying that we have logged that bet in. So it's key to just put that in there for the Action Network app. So for today, though, here's how the touchdown show is going to go for week 14. We're each going to have 3 or 4 touchdown bets. We're going to start off with our favorite best bets, and then we'll just kick up the difficulty as we go, and we'll get super spicy with some long shots, some 2 touchdown bets, anything over plus 1,000. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it as well. And the touchdown show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for the biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, or 18 plus in Kentucky, and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, let's get started. I'm going to give out my best bet for week 14. I'm immediately going to an afternoon slate, an indoor game, because I do not want the weather to impact my bet. And I'm going to the Raiders versus the Vikings. I'm going to take Jacoby Myers to score a touchdown at plus 300. So Myers has 6 touchdowns this year, 12 red zone targets. That stat is important to note because 9 of those targets are inside the 10-yard line. So once they get a little bit closer, he's still getting those looks. 4 of his 5 touchdowns this year have been scored inside the 10-yard line. And this Vikings pass defense, they're above average from a DVOA perspective, but when you look at it from the counting stats, like they are bottom 10 in catches, yards, and touchdowns to wide receivers this year. And one of the things too, they're also allowing the highest target conversion rate in the NFL at 74%. So when a pass is thrown, the chances are pretty high that it's going to get caught on this defense. And the Vikings, they blitz a lot, top rate in the NFL. They also play zone at a top 10 rate. And against zone is actually where Myers has excelled. His target rate increases from 23% to 59% when playing zone. And his yards per route run increases from 1.1 to 1.6. Also, another thing, too, about Jacoby Myers, if you're looking to even go for further value, 5 of the 6 touchdowns that he has scored this season were the first touchdown of the game. He leads the NFL with 5 first touchdown scores. If you would bet him for first touchdown in every game this year, you would be up over 57 units in profit on Jacoby Myers. But we're not going to get too greedy. We're just going to take anytime touchdown. So Jacoby Myers at plus 300 is my best bet for week 14. Charlie, what is your best bet for week 14?
Yeah, heading into the afternoon 4 o'clock slate, and that'll be kind of a trend of what I'm doing on this game. And going to the Broncos against the Chargers, and I'm betting on a guy who has 0 rushing touchdowns this season, and that is Javonte Williams. I think he's due for positive touchdown regression. He has 27 red zone touches, does not have an anytime touchdown as far as on the ground. He's had 2 in the air. But I think this is a great matchup against the Chargers defense that's 22nd in DVOA against the rush. Joey Bosa is obviously on the IR, so that's just a key piece in the middle that will be a plus for Javonte Williams. The Chargers defense, if you look at them of late, right, they haven't given up too many touchdowns, but they've given up over 4 yards per carry and about 135 combined rushing and receiving yards per game to the running back tandems. Samaje Perine was injured, is likely to play, but could see a limited snap count. And we've seen Javonte Williams. He's very good in the passing game. 3+ targets in 5 of his last 6. I think that the volume is there. He's going to get maybe 15 to 16, 17 carries, probably 3 to 5 targets. I'm expecting a big day from him at plus 130, given, Denver's reliance on, the ground. And we've seen as they've had better success, they've been relying through Javonte, who's now fully healthy off the ACL, that he's going to get in the end zone finally. It feels like a Tony Pollard situation that's going to burst eventually. The bubble's going to pop. So give me Javonte Williams plus 130.
Yeah, it's hard to believe the Broncos only have 4 rushing touchdowns this year, and 3 of them have been scored just in the last 2 games, 2 of them by Russell Wilson, if anybody. Yeah. So there's definitely upside now with Javonte Williams, especially with how much he's playing. And like you mentioned, how he's involved in this passing game and this Chargers defense, you had already mentioned it. It's not really a juggernaut by any stretch to be able to stop Javonte Williams. And it's very interesting, too, how much he is now back in the driver's seat, considering Jaleel McLaughlin, especially at the beginning of the year, was such a high-profile name. He's scoring first touchdowns, and then as the season has gone on, you're starting to see Javonte get a little bit stronger, a little bit more effective in this offense. So I think here at plus 130, you're not going to see him probably at those odds again if he scores this week against the Chargers. So solid first look from Charlie. Brian, what is your best bet for Week 14?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize we're all going with the Jays here, so I'm just going to keep keep the theme going. Josh Allen, anytime touchdown. There's a theme with my first 2 picks. They score a lot of touchdowns, and I feel like they're mispriced. So, look, Josh Allen has a rushing touchdown in 5 of his last 6 games. The Bills are coming off of a bye. This is a must-win game for them. So, any concerns as far as, Josh Allen maybe not running as much, that's out the window now. When you need to win games, your quarterback is going to do what it takes to win those games. Also, when they get into the red zone, James Cook has been very effective lately. He's been getting more work with the new offensive coordinator, but he is great at getting them down in between the 20s and, down to the 10. Inside of there, would you prefer Latavius Murray over Josh Allen? I wouldn't. I think Josh Allen, again this week in a game they've got to win, I like him to punch it in. It was plus 165 last night. I think it's about plus 170 or 175 right now, but I'm locking that in as my first pick.
I love this bet, Brian. Honestly, I took him for 2 touchdowns in back-to-back shows. So you know that I love a Josh Allen touchdown bet. I think as well, the one thing that I was going to ask you about, Brian, is because you write about the anytime touchdown tiers at the Action Network about how you rank them of the probability to score. So I have a question for you about Josh Allen as it pertains to your tiers, because we know how Josh Allen kind of maybe will be a little more assertive in whether it be a playoff game or even a game in a situation like this, where it may as well be a playoff game where they're kind of in a must-win situation here. When that happens, do players end up when there's a little bit more of a motivation spot, I guess, or sense of urgency maybe? Do they get upgraded in your tier system, or would they still remain the same just because based on overall talent?
No, so it's truly dependent on the situation. So this is actually Josh Allen's first week in tier 1. So and I know he's been scoring, right? But look, I just feel like, there was a little bit of worry about, all right, is he running the ball a lot? And now look, they need to win. So I think it's, they're going to remove any restrictions. Allen's going to be running, and 2+ TDs might not be a bad look, but I like his rushing prop. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the TD, and he's tier 1 this week.
Beauty. And he leads the team in red zone carries as well. So if anybody's worried about Latavius Murray maybe poaching, no, on 2nd and 3rd down, if the passing isn't there, Josh Allen will tuck and run. So you can check out Brian's touchdown tiers on the Action Network. But now let's move to our second best bet of Week 14. And Charlie, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I will say I love Josh Allen and almost took it for 2+ as my spicy. But when I'm looking at my medium, I'm going with a J again here. Seattle, San Francisco. And we're going Jackson Smith and Jigba at plus 375. I think this number is way too high for him. And we saw JSN last week garner 11 targets against this vaunted Dallas secondary. Had that touchdown call back that I still, to this day, think is a touchdown. Nearly got one against San Francisco, who he's facing again on Thanksgiving. So I just think this is a great spot to continue to buy on JSN. I think that we're watching him really start to flourish and become, one of Gino's favorite targets. I don't think Tyler Lockett fares too well here. He's getting up there in age. JSN has more explosives under him. And we saw, he had a couple of touchdowns early on in the season. Now it's been a little bit of a drought, but this is a perfect game script for him. They're going to be down a lot. They're finally getting healthy, Seattle, which is good because now that Walker and Charbonnet are both playing, it at least gives more ability to move the ball 20 to 20s. And then that's where JSN can kind of get in. And then San Francisco, the matchup, Gilles, you bet on slot receivers so many times against the San Francisco defense. And that's where they struggle. 21st in DVOA. Everywhere else, they're amazing. Huafunga, obviously being out, allows for explosives over the top. San Francisco giving up a little bit more explosives and struggling a little bit more with the receivers. So just a game where Seattle, I think, is going to be down pretty heavily. We'll be relying on the pass. JSN, 70% of his snaps are in the slot. Great look here for a plus 375 number that I think should be closer to 3.
I love that you brought up the slot angle too, because that's how we got Devontae Smith last week. That's how Mike Evans has scored on this defense. We saw Tyler Boyd, Jordan Addison. You can go through all the game logs. Everybody who's a slot receiver has had a little bit of success, maybe not necessarily getting into the end zone, but definitely some yardage and targets. So Jackson Smith and Jigba plus 375. I hope that you get it, man, because I really still am in pain from that touchdown drop or that overcall, because I've seen some touchdowns approved that were way worse than that as far as egregious calls. So again, I'm rooting for you at plus 375 is a very solid number in a matchup that he could definitely exploit for JSN. All right, so now Brian and I are about to do a collab bet for our second bet of the week, because both him and I came to the same conclusion where we probably texted each other within 5 minutes as soon as the odds came out that we were going to be on this guy. And it was like, you know what, let's just do it together. So Brian, why don't you unveil who are we collabing on for week 14?
Yeah, Jay Cortland Sutton. I mean, sorry, I was trying to keep the J theme alive.
Cortland Sutton.
Cortland Sutton. Look, the guy has a touchdown in 5 of his last 6 games and 9 of 12 overall. The game is indoors, and they are playing the Chargers, who have been getting beat through the air. So when these odds came out, I'm thinking, plus 130, 140. And again, this is a guy that scored in 9 of 12. I mean, it's just, at this point, it's kind of crazy. So I looked at the odds, both you and I, and plus 210, I go, yeah, I'm not going to overthink this one. There's no weather concerns. He's the preferred target in the red zone. Profiles very well because he's a big-bodied receiver. And he's very aware. If you watch Russell Wilson, a lot of his throws come on the scramble, right? When he doesn't have great protection. Cortland Sutton is very good at dragging the back of the end zone. He is very good at making himself open on the rollout. So look, he scored, in 75% of the games. So I'm just going to back him again at plus 210 in a game with no weather concerns. This pick just makes way too much sense to me. So I'm going on Cortland Sutton. And then, Gilles, I know you're on this with me too.
Yeah. So Brian, right now, Cortland Sutton has anytime touchdown odds out there as low as plus 120. So the fact that there's still odds being offered out there over plus 200 is such a wide variance for a guy, like you had mentioned, has just been a touchdown machine. I mean, I don't want to slight him, but he is kind of like almost like discount Mike Evans this year, where he's just constantly getting touchdowns and getting looks from the quarterback despite other options in this offense. But the fact 15 red zone targets this year leads the team, but that's also 8th overall in the NFL, but he has 8 red zone touchdowns this year. So that's one thing that's, I think, really important that Russ is looking for him. He's essentially been his safety blanket where Russ just is like, F it, throw it. He's down there somewhere, and that's kind of what Baker has been doing with Mike Evans this season. And now this great matchup again for the Broncos passing offense, because the Chargers, you had mentioned their secondary just continues to make quarterbacks just all look like all pro. They're 27th in DVOA to the pass, 28th in DVOA to wide receiver 1, 13 touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. That's bottom 5 in the NFL. And they've given up 6 touchdowns to wide receivers in just the last 4 games. So Cortland Sutton at plus 200 to me is insane value considering where his odds have gone this year and just how consistently productive he has been in the anytime touchdown market. So that is our collab bet for week 14. We are both on Cortland Sutton at plus 210 this week. But now we're going to kick up the difficulty. We're going to go into our spicy touchdown bets. Now, BMAT, we're both on Cortland Sutton, but now we're going to start to look at some odds where getting a little bit now spicy here, a little bit more difficult. Tell us, who are your spicy touchdown bets for week 14?
All right, so I'm gonna this first one. It shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I'm going David Montgomery, 2+ touchdowns. It's just look, the Lions are playing in Soldier Field, cold weather. David Montgomery, the revenge narrative. He played them already and scored a touchdown. I think we could see more of an emphasis on the ground game today. And look, when they get down in the red zone, inside the 10, inside the 5, David Montgomery's the guy. He's missed 3 games this year, and still scored, I believe, 9 touchdowns. I could be wrong, but I think he scored in all but 2 games that he's actually played in. So they're giving this guy the ball. And then if I'm looking at the weather and saying, all right, hey, it's going to be a little colder, give me David Montgomery in a revenge narrative against his old team, playing in front of the old home crowd at plus 650. I just think I got to take this one and make that my first. And then I'm going to do, so that's a quarter unit. And then I'm going to do a quarter unit on Jay Jettis. I mean, we've been waiting for this guy to return. It feels like it's just
welcome
forever.
back.
So I'm going Justin Jefferson, first touchdown score, which was plus 750. Last I checked. I get that everyone's going to say, all right, Josh Dobbs is, as far as throwing to wide receivers, he's much better throwing to tight ends. Well, when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, as you saw with Jake Browning and Jamar Chase, you just throw him the ball. Doesn't matter. A lot of those might end up being around the line of scrimmage, but you get the guy in a rhythm. Justin Jefferson's too explosive. They've taken their time in bringing him back. So I don't think there's going to be an issue. He was full go in practice all week. So let me get Justin Jefferson on the board with the first touchdown at plus 750.
Justin Jefferson, I mean, my fantasy team is dying for him to come back at this stage because, I mean, he was only supposed to be out for about 4 weeks, and now this is to be the 7th game where now he's going to finally play. Yeah, and if anything, the whole Vikings pass offense will now get a boost with him on the field. I imagine Hawkinson will probably see a couple more looks. Addison will have more one-on-one coverage in the slot. Absolutely. So maybe even the run game that has been just kind of horrendous all year. Maybe Madison could finally get some looks, and actually look decent there. But David Montgomery, he has just been a touchdown machine. We've had him on the boost. We love David Montgomery here at the Touchdown Show. So for 2 touchdowns at plus 650 in a game like that, I think it definitely suits him. So I also have a 2 touchdown bet for that game, but I'm going on the other side of the ball. I'm actually going to be looking at Chicago's offense. I'm going to be looking at Justin Fields actually for 2 touchdowns at 16-1, but I'm also going to pair him with Rachaad White for 2 touchdowns. I was able to get that at 10-1. I still see it around plus 950. Fields might be all the way up now to 17-1. So I'm going to put a quarter unit on each, on Justin Fields for 2 touchdowns at 16-1 and Rachaad White for 2 touchdowns at 10-1. So here, let's break down Fields because I'm sure he's going to be a very popular pick today, but he only has 1 rushing touchdown this season, but he had 8 last year and had a couple of games with multi-touchdowns. And this is a matchup that is made for him. He has ran for over 100 yards. When these teams played just a few weeks ago, it was 3 straight games for over 100 yards rushing versus the Lions. Now, had a 2 touchdown game when they hosted the Lions last season. Weather, again, is going to be very cold and windy. Throwing, I can't imagine, will be much of an option. So I'll count on Fields running the field, as they say, and getting 2 touchdowns. But Rachaad White, I think, is an interesting option here, especially in a matchup against the Falcons, where from a counting standpoint, the Falcons, you maybe don't want to pick running backs, because I texted Charlie about this yesterday, that the Falcons have yet to allow a rushing touchdown this year, but they've allowed 5 touchdowns through the pass. So Rachaad White, why we like him here, though, is that I'm willing to overlook that because he's getting so much volume in the backfield. He has scored now 4 touchdowns in the last 5 games. He had a 2 touchdown game versus the Texans in week 9. And Rachaad White has had at least 20 carries in 3 of the last 5 games in an offense that really isn't tailored to run the ball. So you could see that they're really shifting their philosophy as far as wanting to get him involved. But as I mentioned about the Falcons, 31st in DVOA to the running back when it comes to the pass. And Rachaad White, we have seen his targets just increase as the season has gone on. He's been seeing around the range of 3 to 5 targets. And from a Falcons perspective, AJ Terrell, their star cornerback, don't know how much he's going to be able to make an impact on Mike Evans, but if he's actually somebody who could actually defend him, maybe Baker Mayfield in this offense might look somewhere else to actually score a touchdown, and we can finally cash on someone else that's not named Mike Evans in this offense. So Rachaad White for 2 touchdowns at 10-1, and Justin Fields for 2 touchdowns at 16-1. Going to put a quarter unit on each. Those are my spicy bets for Week 14. Charlie, take us home. What is your spicy bets for Week 14?
Yeah, so if you had Charlie taking a random tight end that's like plus 600 on your bingo card, check that off, because I have an anytime touchdown from a tight end and 2 touchdowns in the Vikings game, and that's Kylan Granson plus 650 of the Colts, and Jay Jetta's 2+ touchdowns at 11-1. Sticking on that
Jefferson. I
there.
love this.
Listen, I'm with BMAT on this one. When you look at Justin Jefferson, like, the man is back. Like, they weren't gonna put him and start him without him being fully healthy, and he's a full go now. And this Vegas secondary is in flux. They released Marcus Peters. They're already 19th in DVOA to the wide receiver 1 position. And when you're Justin Jefferson, you're gonna command such a high target share, as BMAT pointed out. And I think this is a buy low spot on Jefferson. Like, when have we seen odds of Justin Jefferson 2+ at 11-1? With that, I was shocked that it was similar to when Bijan Robinson 2 weeks ago when I took him. I was like, well, we're never going to see this 10-1 again. Well, I looked at him this week. It's like plus 650. I think the same thing's going to happen with Jetta's one. If he has this big game, and he's an explosive receiver that can break one off in the blink of an eye, will be a target fiend, especially with, Madison isn't one of those best running backs that's going to vulture touchdowns and stuff. So I think that even in the red zone, we're going to see plenty of looks at Jay Jetta. So I love him at 2+ touchdowns. And then Kylan Granson. This is a touchdown by committee in Indianapolis, but I think Granson's the top dog in the receiving game. You look at him, he's first in targets with 34 of all tight ends. Ogletree is more of a blocking guy. Granson has really started to develop a rapport with Gardner Minshew. Came off his best game of the season with 72 receiving yards. In Cincinnati, if there's one thing we know about them, it's that they struggle against the tight end, 30th in DVOA to the tight end position. Minshew loves to let it rip. The only worry is, like last week when I was watching the Colts game, I was pulling out my hair because every time they got inside the 10, they just handed the ball off till they got 3rd and long with Zach Moss. But hopefully this time we see a Kylan Granson touchdown. He's explosive. He even got a rush last week. So plus 650, I think, is a little bit too long. And I think there's even a plus 700 out there in the market.
So Kylan Granson, I'm actually hoping that he does score and actually emerges as the tight end 1 in this offense. At least somebody does that's not Mo Alley Cox. So like my friends can just stop texting me like random innuendo jokes about like, oh, Mo Alley Cox is going to penetrate the end zone, like that kind of stuff. I'm just so sick of that kind of stuff. I get that all the time. So anybody, Drew Ogletree, I don't care. Just somebody, Jelani Woods, I don't care. Just somebody get Mo Alley Cox off of that roster so I don't have to hear about those jokes anymore. But yeah, Kylan Granson, definitely solid odds here at plus 650. Loving the look for Justin Jefferson for 2 touchdowns. And you had Deebo Samuel for 2 touchdowns last week. So you'll be able to hit a nice little back-to-back weeks on touchdowns. And
Bijan the week prior. So we're on a 2-week streak of hitting 2+ tutties. So hopefully Jay Jettas gets the first one in, and then me and B-Mac can gritty together as he gets his second.
Yeah, Charlie, the new 2-touchdown whisperer. So again, Justin Jefferson at 11-1 for Charlie, and he also has Kylan Granson tight end in for the Colts game for his spicy picks. All right, now let's talk about Sunday Night Football. Eagles, Cowboys, the over-under at 52, highest total of the week. I think we're all expecting a lot of scoring in this game. Let's look at the touchdown odds from Bet365. Let's look at the top 8 players right now. So the favorite to score, CeeDee Lamb, minus 163. That's not a big surprise. He's been a touchdown machine over the last 5 games. Tony Pollard at minus 138. A lot of minus odds on this game. And you're also seeing Jalen Hurts at minus 120. And that's when then we start to see positive odds. AJ Brown at plus 137, DeAndre Swift at plus 160, B-Matt's boy Jake Ferguson at plus 175, and then to round it out, the wide receiver 2s of Devontae Smith and Brandon Cooks, both at plus 187. Our own Nick Giffen went through the touchdown odds for this game, and he was able to find somebody that he not only sees as fair odds, but fair value as well, and he's going to be putting a bet on it. Nick, who did you find for fair odds for this game for Sunday Night Football?
Thanks, Gilles, and happy week 14, everyone. I'm Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network, and I'm here to talk anytime touchdown projections for Sunday Night Football between the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles. Anytime touchdowns for primetime games are often juiced down, and this one is no exception, especially with such a marquee matchup between two high-profile teams. That means I'm heading down the odds board for the only projection value of the game, and that's KaVontae Turpin at anything longer than plus 550. Turpin has touchdowns in 4 of 11 games already this year, and this looks like a prime spot to pick up another. The Philadelphia Eagles have allowed the 4th most yards per coverage routes to the slot and the most touchdowns in the NFL with 9 to the slot position. That benefits Turpin as he's played exactly 2/3 of his offensive snaps out of the slot, including catching all 3 of his receiving touchdowns. The Eagles also play man defense at a higher rate than league average, and Turpin has more than doubled his yards per route run versus man coverage with 3 yards per route run compared to zone coverage where he's at just 1.4. His 8 red zone opportunities rank him 6th on the team, even ahead of guys like Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup. He's also got some sneaky value as a punt and kick returner, which I'm not even accounting for in that plus 550 fair odds projection. So KaVontae Turpin at anything longer than plus 550 is the anytime touchdown projection darling for Sunday Night Football. Guys, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Nick. So Nick is going with KaVontae Turpin, guys. He was able to get him around plus 750. He's around plus 700 I'm seeing right now at Bet365, which is still solid value because his closing fair value, he wants you to bet it over plus 550. So I'm with them, especially because KaVontae Turpin, one thing he didn't mention in the video is that if you would bet 1 unit on Turpin for every game, you'd be up 33 units in profit so far this year. He's the most profitable anytime touchdown scorer of the season. So I love KaVontae Turpin. I will say I do also like Devontae Smith. What I don't love are the odds right at plus 187. I was hoping that we would get around plus 200 to plus 210. And part of the reason why is, so I bet on Devontae now. I mean, I've had him on the show a couple of times. I bet him personally. Really part of his emergence over the last 5 weeks has kind of resulted as why he's doing that is because Dallas Goedert was out. Not saying that Dallas Goedert is a detriment to him, but you're seeing with Dallas Goedert in the lineup without, like he was averaging almost 9 targets a game without Dallas Goedert. That drops to about 6 with him in the lineup. And then also another thing last week, he did score, but the Eagles' rush offense, I think, is going to be a little bit more of a factor in this game. They only ran the ball 18 times last week. Normally, they're around 31 attempts per game. So that's just, 14 on average, 14 less plays that they're throwing the ball. That should increase the odds. Whereas instead, we're actually seeing a downturn in odds. So one thing I would suggest, and this is what I'm doing with Devontae Smith, is I'm going to wait a little bit closer to kickoff because we're seeing right now what's happening is that to limit the exposure initially, sportsbooks may be putting the odds out just a little bit lower and then slowly increasing the odds as they get closer to kickoff and this market matures. And, it's along with some competitive price matching as well. So you could probably get a better price if you just wait till a little bit closer to kickoff, or even another approach where if the odds don't go up, you could probably wait until maybe right after the first drive of the game and get Devontae around plus 200 in game. But that's what I would suggest is I like Devontae Smith from a matchup standpoint, just want a little bit better of odds. But I think I'm in agreement with Nick on KaVontae Turpin. I love him to score in this game, especially at those odds. Charlie, what are you thinking?
Yeah, nope, Turpin. I love Turpin. Anytime there's a
Turpin
7
time
in front of it, I'm in. Gonna have to keep betting him like I did for Thanksgiving. I just think that it's a great, like he gets used in the red zone, and I think that other than CeeDee Lamb and I guess Tony Pollard now, there aren't that many options that Dak's been using. Oh, and Ferguson, of course. But he's like the wide receiver 2 right now when it comes to red zone looks and packages. And he was close last week down at the 1 or 2, and then the week prior, obviously, he got in the end zone. So we're seeing higher usage, and this number just is just way too far for me.
Matt, you had mentioned that you're on Jake Ferguson as well. Or like you mentioned it in the intro that you love Jake Ferguson to score. Will you still bet him at plus 175? Or are you taking the same approach as me where you're maybe waiting till a little bit closer to kickoff to see if the odds shift in your favor?
Yeah, no, I am going to wait on this one. So just like you said, I mean, this trend goes back to last year, so it's nothing new that the odds get better closer to kickoff. So especially when you've got a guy and you've got a number where you feel like is the right number, around plus 200, I feel like for Ferguson, I feel like would be great value. At least for this matchup. You see it, he's a plus 135 somewhere, he's plus 175. So I feel like if we wait a little bit closer to kickoff, I'll be able to get him around plus 195, plus 190, maybe even plus 200. So that's when I'll give the green light on it.
All right. Well, instead of waiting till closer to kickoff, why don't we talk about a bet that we can make right now for this game? Specifically, the Bet365 anytime touchdown boosted parlay. So what we decided is instead of betting some games from the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock slate, we decided, why don't we just get some boosted odds for Sunday Night Football, a game where we know there's likely going to be a lot of scoring. So we have taken CeeDee Lamb and paired him with A.J. Brown. And now, instead of plus 275, we're able to pair those two touchdowns at plus 300. So that's the boosted anytime touchdown parlay from Bet365. CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown. Now, Lamb, he's got 7 touchdowns over the last 5 games. He's 5th in the NFL in targets. I don't really want to go into too deep about how good CeeDee Lamb is, but he didn't score versus Philly, but he had like 11 catches and almost 200 receiving yards. Yeah. He has been an excellent receiver this season. And Brown, 7 touchdowns this year, but only 1 touchdown in the last 3 games. So the squeaky wheel is going to start to come out here, and we know the volume is coming. And I think it's worth noting that, yes, he didn't score last week, but he did have 6 red zone targets versus the 49ers. So clearly they're still going to be looking for him in the end zone. So Lamb and Brown is the parlay. Charlie, what do you think of the wide receiver parlay?
I love it. I wrote up about CeeDee Lamb, about this game and how I love it's a smash spot for him. He lines up in the slot a lot, which pulls you away from Darius Slay. I think he's going to have a huge day. And then you don't have to tell me twice with A.J. Brown. The man is a straight monster. So I love this matchup. I think that we're going to see a trailing game script for Philly. I like Dallas to take this one home. So that's only a bigger benefit for A.J. Brown because we've seen CeeDee Lamb, Dak and the Cowboys, they love to run the score up, and eventually we'll get CeeDee Lamb in the end zone. And I was going to take A.J. Brown for my pick if it was not a primetime game.
Ooh, you made my heart flutter there, like talking dirty to me about the Dallas Cowboys winning against the Eagles. Thank you very much. B-Matt, what are you thinking of this parlay?
Yeah, I love these. And this is the perfect place to use the boost when you have somebody like CeeDee Lamb, whose odds are minus 130 or whatever they are.
Yeah.
Give me a boost with him in it. And then if you're going to pair him with A.J. Brown, who's starting fights at the end of the last game, I'm sure, because he's not happy that he had that many red zone looks and didn't convert. So, yeah, the man's going to get fed. We saw it earlier in the year. We talked about it. I played his touchdown right after, and the man went off. So I think that's coming again soon. So, yeah, love the boost. Already played.
All right. So the boosted parlay this week for week 14 is for Sunday Night Football, and it is CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown boosted from plus 275 to plus 300. And that boost was courtesy of Bet365 because the touchdown show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for the biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. You're 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, that's the touchdown show for week 14. That's all for today. 4 picks from me, 4 picks from Charlie, and of course, 4 picks from Brian. And as always, we're going to see you next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern as part of the Action Network Power Hour. And if you misconvinced me, you can rewatch the show or even download the Action Network app. You can get all of our picks in one place and see all of our week 14 touchdown bets in the Action app. I want to thank you again for watching the touchdown show presented by Bet365. Bon chance.